Good evening and happy Tuesday. Welcome to another hour of good nature. Hopefully good nature. I tell you, folks, we're going to run the gamut tonight. We've got all kinds of cool things, various levels of intrigue. We've had a lot of questions come in this week. I think it's great. People are outdoors paying attention to things, wondering, well, what's this or what's that? And I've done a fair share of that myself too. In fact, one of the things I wanted to share with you, I don't have any pictures of because it just slowly occurred to me over the last day or so. I was walking to work one day last week and I heard a cicada. Now, that was the first week of June. Today's June 13th. So let's say it was a week ago, June 6th. And it actually, you know what? It was June 7th because it was the day after we met last week. And I heard this sort of buzzing, and it was a stuttering kind of a buzz. And in my mind, I was thinking annual cicadas, because next year, 2024, is when we see our 17-year cicadas. The periodical cicadas are due to return next year. Now, we did have a small chunk of what we call stragglers back in 2020. I don't know that we saw many here in Kane County, but my mom's house in Wheaton, I would say there were maybe 50 or so that I found over the course of a couple of weeks that came up through the soil in her yard. Well, the other day I was talking to a friend, and he mentioned finding a cicada in his yard in Glen Ellen. He said it was weird. It was little. It was weird colors. Well, it turns out that there is yet another round of stragglers. Now, the group of cicadas that we have in this area, the periodical cicadas, well, in fact, nationwide, are wherever they occur, they are associated, each species is associated with what is called a brood. A couple of years ago, Brood XIII came out in central Illinois. Brood XIII, I think, is the largest of all the broods throughout North America. Brood XIII, though, is what the cicadas in our area belong to, the periodical cicadas. Anyway, it turns out, perhaps because of our mild winters that we've been having lately, that there's some individuals that aren't sticking with the 17-year plan. They're coming out a year early. So Glen Ellen, Lombard, areas east of us that had big populations of 17-year cicadas in 2007, they're reporting these stragglers. So doggone, I'm pretty sure that's what I heard in my neighborhood here in St. Charles. Now, in 2007, I spent a lot of time looking for periodical cicadas. At that time, I was working at Red Oak Nature Center down in North Aurora. I think I found 3. And one of them was being eaten by a robber fly. It wasn't a big deal the way it was farther east of here. My theory on that, and what I've been able to piece together, is that a lot of the bigger scale development in this area occurred more recently, when larger swaths of land were cleared, trees were taken away, and with the trees, once the trees were gone, the roots died or were taken away too. The roots are what the cicadas feed on. So in areas like some of our older suburbs to the east, Oak Park, I actually was living in Evanston in 1990, which was the emergence prior to 2007. Evanston developed at a time when houses were built one at a time. And there were cicadas everywhere. Anyway, my point is, there's at least one cicada in my little neighborhood right here in St. Charles. I'm gonna, again, I wasn't able to record it or get a good picture of it, but let's see what I have here. This is a pretty cool website. It's called Cicada Mania. And there's actually 3 different species of periodical cicadas that make up Brood 13. 2 are pretty common. 1 is kind of rare. The one I'm thinking I heard was the smallest one. It's called Cassin's periodical cicada. And it sounds like this. It sounds like it's a cicada that's stuttering, trying to get started. Oh, you know what? I need to share my screen. Hold on. Let's see, where's our meeting now up here? All right. Kim and no. All right, let's go back to this. Right, we're going to share the screen. We're going to make sure we optimize for sound. And now we're going to listen to Cassin cicada. Oh, it sounds like a Linnaeus cicada. It's buzzing. In fact, let's go back to the beginning here. It sounds like it's having trouble starting. And again, in my head, I was thinking it was an annual cicada that was having trouble starting because it's starting a month early. Our annual cicadas, the big green ones, they're not due yet for another couple of weeks. Let's listen. That's what I was hearing. So if you're hearing cicadas now too, do a little investigating. See if you can track the sound down, or maybe make a recording of it. There is an iNaturalist page. I don't have the link offhand, but you can actually, if you're on iNaturalist or you're familiar with it, you can go on and just search under projects for stragglers for Brood 13. And you can report your sightings there. If you're having trouble finding it, go ahead, shoot me an email, and I can send you the link for it. But I don't think I'll report mine because I can't even remember the exact day. I'm pretty sure it was last Wednesday. And I didn't get a recording of it. But anyway, just something to be aware of, and on yeah, also anticipating we are 1 year away from the larger emergence of Brood 13. So maybe mark your calendar. If you're a planner, put it down. Look forward to that happening a year from now. Now, last week, I had some cool videos that I wanted to show you, and something has changed either on Google Photos or on my laptop, and I've had such a problem getting them to play, but I've got one here that I think you guys will all appreciate. I'm going to bring it up here and show you what I saw. So this was part of my visit to that little cemetery we talked about last week. It's called New Hampshire Settlement Cemetery. It's on the west side of Route 47 between Route 38 and Route 64. It's a pretty small cemetery. It's got some pretty old graves in it. I visited there because my old neighbor from when I was growing up, a family that treated me like their niece or their grandchild, is buried there. And I did a little exploration, a little bit of genealogy, as well as a little bit of natural history exploration too. And then I sat on a wall and noticed this. Let me pull this up here. It's the cemetery ants and caterpillar video. This was so cool. Screen sharing is paused. Looks like I'm going to have to start this over again. Boy, I'm loving it though. It's too bad you guys can't see it. Let me try it again here. I'll minimize and we will go back to our screen and we will share. All right, let's try it again. All right. All right, so I was this stump that I had considered sitting on, and then I remembered an experience I'd had as a kid where I sat on a stump and I got ants in my pants. So I wisely sat above it, not realizing that there were actually ants in this stump. This was underneath a mulberry tree, and look at the effort. Look at the teamwork, making the dream work. Here, this standing rib roast of a meal has fallen down on this ant colony, and they are working together. Get it, not that way. No. We're gonna go this way. No, we're gonna go that way. Everybody lift at once. I'm gonna actually pause this right here because this does give us a pretty cool view of caterpillar anatomy, dead caterpillar anatomy. But we've got our 6 legs up here. These will stay with a caterpillar into its adult phase of butterfly or moth. And then we've got these structures here, these sticky pads. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs here. Those are called the prolegs. And that's what they're the feet of these little prolegs are covered with tiny little hairs. That's what gives caterpillars the ability to cling onto so many different things. Now, apparently that clinging did not go so well for this particular caterpillar because it's very dead. But it's going to make a heck of a meal for this colony of ants, which I wish I knew the species on. Ant ideas is something that I hope to get my head wrapped around one day, but for right now, they're just reddish orange ants. So with that, why don't we go ahead and segue into our slides for tonight, which can be found on this screen here. All right. I don't know if any of you are fans of the show Friends, but watching that caterpillar get moved around by all of those little ants going this way and that way made me think of this episode where they were trying to move Ross and Chandler and Rachel are trying to move a couch up. I think is it Ross's apartment? They're trying to get it around the curve and the staircase, and they kept going, pivot, pivot. I just pictured the little ants, screaming pivot at each other too. Anyway, moving right along, let's stay with caterpillars for another slide or two. I visited with some friends that I used to work with at Red Oak and at Fox Valley Park District last week. There's, like any of you who are interested, Fox Valley Park District puts on an event, 21 and over concert series that goes all summer long. It's called Live and Uncorked, and it is at Blackberry Farm. You can go to the Fox Valley Park District website. You do have to purchase a ticket, $8 in advance or $10 day of. That's not to be confused with the free concerts in the park brought to you by the St. Charles Park District at Lincoln Park in downtown St. Charles. May as well get our commercials in early, huh? So anyway, I parked. I was going to head over to meet my friends who were sitting near the stage at the concert, and I see a stand of milkweed, and I can't walk right past it. I have to stop and look to see if there's any monarch caterpillars, and sure as shooting, here's one here. I'm thinking it's in its last instar. Larval insects have what are called instars that they go through and as they progress towards pupation and becoming an adult. And at this stage, this caterpillar really couldn't get much larger. It was bigger than my pinky finger, but it was still having one more snack of milkweed. This is the head end, and this is where the chewing was occurring. But look at the tail end. It's got these same tentacles back here. It's a nice little diversion away from the head should a predator come along and think they're going to pluck this monarch caterpillar off. They're going to have to think twice because there looks to have two heads. Now, you might be thinking, well, why would anything want to eat a monarch caterpillar? They're consuming milkweed, they're consuming toxins. There's a big range in the toxicity of the cardiac glycosides, the chemicals that are in milkweed. And some milkweed plants have more and some milkweed plants have less. A female monarch butterfly actually has to choose her host plants carefully, because if there's too potent of a chemical, if it's too strong, and she can sense that through her feet, if there's too much chemical, it's going to kill her offspring too. So she's got to find one that's just right, kind of like like Goldilocks, you know, in the Three Bears. So anyway, they do sometimes get predated. Same with monarch adults. For the most part, though, a lot of animals tend to leave them alone. And those tentacles are just there for decoration. From there, let's go to another young insect. Now, this is it's a bush katydid nymph, and I cannot tell you what species it is. We can zoom in a little bit better so you can get a better look at it, but katydids, you know, the most famous katydid is the true katydid that we'll hear calling in the trees as we get into later summer, July and August, on through our frosts that will occur. They're the ones that call, you know, katydid, no she did, yes she did, no she did, back and forth up in the trees. Bush katydid, we actually have a lot of other types of katydids in this area. They look kind of like grasshoppers, but look at those antennae. Grasshoppers, true grasshoppers, and we have lots of species of those too, but they have short antennae. And our katydids, which are also called longhorn grasshoppers, will have these really long antennae. I got this one to genus, but I don't think I'll be able to get it to species. It was having a little drink at the bird bath, which now it's still sprinkling out. I did consider having tonight's meeting occur from the porch here at Good Natured World headquarters, but I just wasn't sure about lighting, and it is a little wet out on the porch. Thank goodness we are getting this moisture though, because so many, well, I've had a lot of birds come to the bird bath, but I've also had a lot of insects. This was one of many. This was one that stayed long enough for me to take a picture of it. If you have the ability or the means to be able to put some water out, even though we are getting a little bit of rain, I know that the wildlife would appreciate it. Now here I was walking to work. I think this was, well, it was on June 8th. So that would be last Thursday. In fact, I can close this info section over here. I was looking, this is a basswood tree, and I was actually looking at the blossoms in anticipation of smelling that heavenly basswood scent. And I noticed this little character stuck to one of the leaves. Now, these guys, well, they're not native. This is the Asian ladybug, the one that can give you a little pinch. They're some of our largest ladybugs in the area. This is a larva that's going into its pupal stage. So it will soon be casting off that skin one more time and going into pupation, which lasts, I think, I don't know, a week or so. It's not too terribly long, but let's zoom in. Beetles, just like our caterpillars that will spin a pad of silk and then hang from it in order to shed their skin and go into their pupal phase. This one had already attached itself to and was going into, their body isn't quite long enough to form a J like our monarch caterpillars do, but it's curling up pretty good. It probably forms at least a C. as it gets ready to cast that skin off. Now, this next picture is not mine. It's from Bug Guide, but it shows what happens next. If you happen to notice this, and we have a lot of multicolored Asian lady beetles around. They are our predominant species in this area. But if you see something like this, keep in mind that is the little, that's the pupal phase. And when that skin comes off one last time, the adult ladybug emerges. So I know our naturalist crew was finding these things a couple of years ago and we're baffled by them, but it's what you're seeing is the pupal phase of the Asian lady beetles. This right here, this is the cast skin. So there's it's attached here. It wiggles out of that skin one last time, pupates, and then will come out, split the skin and come out as an adult. Really cool. So since we're talking about things that shed, these were some pictures that I took. This is over at Mount St. Mary's Park, and this is last Friday. This is the enormous oak tree. Susie, if you're on tonight, it's the giant oak. It's your oak tree at the south end of Mount St. Mary's Park. Well, we gathered there. I was walking with a group of nature nerds. We were trying as best we could to get all of our faces into a selfie. And then we just, we're looking at things like the lichens and the moss that are growing on the bark of this tree. And I happened to notice that there's a lot of bits and pieces on it. Look here's another cast exoskeleton from an insect. 3 little tails coming off the end like that makes me want to say mayfly, but mayflies develop in the water and then they crawl out. I didn't know that they could actually come this far away from water in order to shed their skins, but mayflies do go through, they have adult insects, their adult stage is called the imago stage. Well, mayflies have a sub-imago stage. So maybe this had already shed once and was able to get itself over to the tree and then it shed again. I don't know, really cool, but very, very tiny. It looked like a little ghost hanging out on the tree. As did these guys. If we zoom in here, I don't know at all what we're looking at here. But it's really, when you start to look, you're always going to be surprised at what you see. And this one's a little bit better. Let's zoom in here. We've got 2 different ones. Probably the same species, but 2 different individuals. Again, unsure of what it is we're looking at. I did get the old 2 5/8 inch lip balm out so you could get a sense of scale. These are really tiny. We're thinking, maybe 1/4 of an inch, maybe even less than that. But really neat, and probably are no longer living as adults. Usually when adults of this size, they shed their skin, their purpose at this point of their life is to mate, to lay some eggs, and then they die, or maybe serve as bird food. But some neat little signs right there on the giant oak tree. A lot of them, I didn't get a good picture from the other side of the tree. There's a large limb that's been removed from this tree. I'm kind of wondering, you all probably have heard this. It's been in the news a couple of times. St. Charles is not doing their fireworks from Boy Scout Island, and people will not be viewing from Potawatomi this year. Fireworks are actually going to be shot off at Langham Park, and the viewing is going to be at Mount St. Mary's. This was not a park district decision. It was the St. Charles Police, given the terrible tragedy that happened last year at Highland Park. So there's lots of things that are being spruced up and prepared in advance of the 4th of July. anyway, there was a big branch that was cut off of this tree, and there were tons of exoskeletons stuck on that wound. And there must have been some moisture, some seepage, some sap that was coming out of it. It's a big draw for these little guys. I just didn't get a good enough picture, but was happy that there were bugs on the other side as well. All right, so this is a little insect that a couple people sent me photos of, and then I happened to catch a glimpse of one in my own backyard. This is called, and I do not know the species because there are a ton of them. It's a long-legged fly. This was hanging out, not so coincidentally, next to my compost bin. This is an insect that is predatory in both its larval and its adult phases. So the larvae live in the compost and they feed on little creatures there, and then the adults fly around and feed on other little creatures. It's a beautiful, it looks like an oil slick. It's got gold and orange and green. And then it's got that neat pattern on the wings. And yes, it has long legs. If we look at the family name, Dolichopotidae, that means, Dolicho means long and Potidae means legs. So the long-legged fly family, 1,300 species in North America. So I'm maybe there's an obvious characteristic, but I'm not a fly scientist. I don't know exactly what to look for. They are really cool though, and something that you too can spot. I've noticed them actually not near my milk, look what I did. Not near my compost too. I see them on the milkweed, and I think they might maybe feed on some aphids or something else that is present on the milkweed, because I've seen them frequently in my front yard as well. Now, this was a fly. I was no longer living, but it was so pretty I had to stop and pick it up. It was right out here on the porch of Good Natured World headquarters. It's a picture-winged fly. Their larvae live in compost as well. And I don't know compost pile wise what we have here in downtown St. Charles, but the adults can be found feeding on the sap of tree wounds. Before we go to the next slide, let's just zoom in a little bit. Really neat looking fly. Pictured wings. So almost like stained glass. The pattern on the wings, prominent veins here, and then almost a bee-like pattern on the abdomen. This is a fly, as I said, it feeds on the sap of trees. This is a wound on the tree right out in front. I hope that this tree isn't getting sick, but boy, it had a terrible time last year with gypsy moths that are now known as spongy moths. In fact, I think here is the remains of an adult gypsy moth from last year, maybe as it, I think that's the old pupal case from a gypsy moth stuck in that wound there. But anyway, not so much a coincidence that we found picture winged flies when our tree has this open wound the way it does. Now, some people, when they look at those picture winged flies, they think, it's a deer fly. Well, deer flies, I know these from up north, our cabin up in Michigan. Boy, the females of different, and there's a lot of different deer fly species too, but they feed on vertebrate blood, like from deer, but also from humans. It's a pretty painful, but it's not quite as bad as a horse fly, but you know when a deer fly has gotten you. We used to, when we would go to to the lake, to the beach, and these deer flies would see all this, exposed skin, and they'd come swarming in, and you'd have to spend a lot of time underwater. But anyway, very different sort of insect, different patterning too. Those picture wing flies, these veins are colored as well. Not so the case with the deer fly. So keep your eyes open. We don't see too many deer flies around here, but we do see picture-winged flies. Now, going back to Mount St. Mary's, this was a flower that was blooming last Friday. I'm sure it's still in bloom now. I'm sure it's appreciating this little bit of rain that we're getting. This is wild quinine. It's a flower that I tried to capture, but it looks like I got kind of blurry. It reminds me, these little flowers on the head, they remind me of little cauliflowers. They're somewhat waxy when you feel them. If you break one off and bite it, it does have a tang, kind of like what you would experience in tonic water that contains actual quinine. But it's one of the earlier blooming prairie plants. Every month in summer, the prairie becomes more alive. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, Mount St. Mary's isn't a prairie, it's a city park, but there is a naturalized border. This is between the walking path and the river. So other side over here is where the river would be. There's actually quite a mixture. We've got some some golden Alexanders here, some penstemon. Here's another look that maybe you'll get more of a sense of that cauliflower type character. That name wild quinine refers back to when this plant actually was used as a substitute for actual quinine to fight malaria during World War I. So, and I think even back during pioneer days, this was used to help control fevers that were probably due to mosquito bites and malaria. Eat plant, now blooming. Now, this is a plant I actually said when I got home Friday night, where have you been all my life? This is serviceberry. And I don't know if it's a cultivar or if it's a true species. The Amelanchier is the genus name for the serviceberries. These things are so tasty. I know we're not supposed to pick, we're not supposed to collect, but there were so many berries on the street, and they actually were oddly untouched by the birds. Sort of makes me wonder if they know something I don't, but really tasty little berries. I took some home and for me, but also for my box turtle, Arthur. He was not as impressed with them as I thought he was going to be. This is a turtle, some of you might know. I've had him since 1978. Every year in late spring, early summer, early June, as the mulberries become ripe, I always pick several rounds of mulberries. He absolutely loves them. I don't know, mulberries they're a nice little snack if I find myself out and I'm hungry. But this actually tastes like a kind of a tangy blueberry. They were really, really good. Artie was not as impressed. I think I'm going to have to try and find him some more mulberries. The ones I did find for him last week, they were kind of dry. Yeah, there just hasn't been much moisture. The berries aren't plumping out the way they would if there was good moisture in the soil. So kind of a bust for Artie, but a big hit for me. See if you can find yourself some serviceberries around your own neighborhood. Just make sure they haven't been sprayed or treated with anything, which I don't think these were. Now, this picture is actually a couple weeks old, but I don't think I shared it at the time. This is from Norris Woods. This was found by Brian, the head of he's our lead restoration ecologist. He wanted to know what might be nesting in Norris Woods. Now, birds' nests fascinate me. And in fact, I do a lot of identification of birds' nests in the wintertime when they're very obvious, when the trees have dropped their leaves. And by the way, I don't know if any of you are near the downtown area of St. Charles, you might be hearing fireworks right now. Tonight was the night that our park staff and our board members are going to do some test viewing. So if you happen to be around and hearing that thumping, that's what's going on. They're doing some test fireworks shots from Langham to see what the viewing is like from various points around town. So anyway, getting back to our bird's nest here, I'm pretty sure this is an indigo bunting nest. Indigo bunting eggs are all white. This was about the size. Ryan described it as smaller than his hand. And he said it was right at about eye level. There is a Peterson, the Peterson Field Guides, there is a guide to bird nests that you can consult. It's pretty good. I like this book, The Birder's Handbook, Field Guide to the Natural History of North American Birds. It's not the sort of guide that you take out with you. I've talked about this in other sessions too. It's not the sort of guide that you carry around with you because it's big and heavy, but it is really handy in terms of learning all sorts of elements of a bird's life history. It tells how high they build the nest, what it's shaped like, what it's made out of, who builds it. Is it the male? Is it the female? Is it both? Who incubates the eggs? Who takes care of the young? All kinds of cool little facts like that. So using that book, and then of course doing some image searches as well to see what other indigo bunting nests looks like. I'm pretty sure that's who made this cute little construction here. And that's actually a species they've been managing for at Norriswood. So that was exciting. Ryan was happy to hear that. And then I got this picture the other day from my friend Peggy. Now, Peggy works for DeKalb County. She runs the Environmental Ed Center at Russell Woods Forest Preserve in Genoa. And she was out in the woods and she found this nest that was also at about eye level, but look at how different the construction is. Similar size, similar height, very different materials. In fact, when I looked at that, I thought, did this bird nest get TP'd? Is there some, marauding band of little bird cheerleaders that were going around TPing houses in advance of the big game? I don't know. Peggy wasn't exactly sure what it was either. But we did notice, so there's two distinctly different eggs in there. One, the lower one, light speckling, and that oblong shape, she said that was kind of more of a trick of the angle of the camera. It wasn't really pear-shaped like that. It was really more egg-shaped, but that is the egg of the builder, and it is some type of a vireo. Not exactly sure what kind, but we determined that all of this white stuff is actually spider webs, and that's a characteristic of a vireo nest. Now, the vireo nest was visited by another bird, a brown-headed cowbird. A lot of people get down on cowbirds because the way they dump their eggs in other birds' nests, and the cowbird young, I think they hatch like a day sooner and they're bigger and they grow faster and they end up displacing a lot of their nest mates. But in fact, Peggy even said, do you think I should remove the cowbird egg? You can't. The cowbirds are a native species and they're just doing what they do. They're not, they developed this habit over a long period of time as they would follow the bison. They would feed on the insects and the seeds kicked up by grazing herds of bison. They couldn't really afford to stay in one place long enough to raise their young, or they would lose out on their easy source of food. So they developed this easy way of being a parent. Because she doesn't have to spend a lot of time incubating and then feeding her offspring, a female cowbird can produce a crazy amount of eggs. It's something like, I don't know, 30 or 40 eggs a season, which is way more than the birds that are tending to them. But I don't know, Peggy has not been back to this nest to see if more Vireo eggs were laid in it, but she did send these other pictures for us to enjoy. Now, this is my version of what I'm pretty sure is another Vireo nest, again, found at Mount St. Mary's. I didn't do this. It was laying on the ground. All I did was pick it up and take some pictures, but these are definitely all chunks of spider web and spider silk. These things were very sticky. They helped hold these different parts of the nest together. And we can see, like, here's some spider egg sac. I thought there was another one, or maybe it's in this picture. Well, I tried to do a close-up of the spider egg sac here, but hummingbirds will use spider webs to glue the lichens that they use to construct their teensy little nests. So it's spider silk is used by a lot more than spiders, and vireos at this time of year are an important user of spider silk. Now, I should have put a warning, sensitive viewers, please avert your eyes, but this is the scene that greeted my coworkers the other morning here at Good Natured World Headquarters, also known as the Baker Annex. This is a robin that did not survive because it was in the midst of building its nest. It didn't survive because of fishing line. I tell you guys, I get so aggravated. I'm so torn when I see people out fishing. I love to see people recreating and enjoying the Fox River and maybe even teaching their kids to fish. But my goodness, and it's not everybody, but there's those few people that go out and their line gets tangled. They pull a big snarl out of their reel. Instead of wadding it up and putting it in a pocket, they leave it on the shoreline. Already this year, I've picked up probably a dozen different chunks of fishing line. It seems like it's everywhere. And this is the toll it takes. Now, granted, we have a lot of robins. The population isn't going to take a hit because this bird died, but the bird died unnecessarily. And it's not just robins that this happens to. We had a Baltimore Oriole over at Potawatomi that died from getting caught in fishing line. Great blue herons, great egrets, they get tangled up in fishing line too. So I'd say it's probably one of the best ways you can help birds. Don't necessarily need to put out a feeder, but if you can take a walk and find some fishing line and dispose of it properly. I usually take it home and wad it up and then put some tape around it, or put it in a trash can, but make sure you wind it up tightly so that if say a raccoon or something gets into the trash can, that it's not going to get tangled up in the line either. But yeah, fishing line, big menace, big problem. I suppose I should say, since, I forgot to put the warning up, this is going to be just a little bit of a weird section of slides. This is, and these pictures are a little bit smaller because they were texted to me. These were all from my coworker, Karina, who is the nature designee when I'm not in the office. She had to cut down the robin from the bush. And then she also had to send me this picture, which is the bald-faced hornet nest that I returned to nature about 2 months ago. And I was so excited to see that something tore it open. We've talked all winter long about how bald-faced hornets, these paper nests that they create once the cold sets in and the insects are all dead. People always feel like they need to cut them down, and you really don't have to, because there's a lot of good food in there. as was illustrated here. So this didn't go to waste, and it's now slowly breaking down. There's even a few birds that might use some of that paper material created by the wasp to make their own nests. Bald-faced hornets, speaking of. Now, I looked at this, guys, I really do wash my windows from time to time. I just haven't done it recently. And with all the dryness we've had, that's, I'm pretty sure a lot of that is pollen, probably other dust particles that are in the air. But this little bald-faced hornet was on my sliding door. This was, I think, Saturday night. It wasn't, this isn't an insect that can fly at night. They need sunlight in order to be able to navigate. So it spent the whole night camped out there on the window. Bald face, they get their name bald face because bald is the old English word for white. And if we look at its face, look at that. Let's zoom in a little bit too. It is indeed white. Now the mouth parts here, these mandibles, these are uniquely adapted actually, they're not unique. Lots of wasps have them, but they are so very well adapted for their job, which is scraping wood fibers, which the insect then chews up and actually creates paper in its mouth. It wasn't making any paper there on the window, but it did. Once it lightened up the next morning, it did take off, and I'm gonna see if I can figure out. It's really hard to find their nest when the trees are fully leafed out. Last year, it turns out I was seeing these all summer at the bird bath, but it wasn't until the leaves came off the trees that I found out there was one in the parkway tree right outside of my house. So yeah. Kind of a cool little surprise there on the sliding window. Okay, so here we go to more weirdness. This was sent in by Laura, who is a regular attendee on our Tuesday night Zooms, but she texted me before tonight's program and said that she is babysitting her little granddaughter, so she's unable to join us. But
actually, I'm here, Pam. I got out of it.
What did you do with the baby?
Her dad stayed home.
Oh, okay.
So I'm here. Okay. I'm like, yay! I get to watch Good Nature Hour.
Well, thank goodness, Laura. Then I don't have to make up words. You can help us tell the story, and we do have a lot of folks on the call tonight that maybe did not hear about the Delnor Woods turtle deaths. There was 4 turtles before this one. This was number 5. Right. Mm-hmm. And they were spotted actually by one of our current KCCNers, John, was there with his grandkids, 2-3 weeks ago, something like that, and spotted dead turtles floating in the duckweed of the front pond at Delnor Woods. Now, about maybe 4 years ago now, the park district installed this enormous aerator that has really changed the ecology of that front pond. And I was kind of not so secretly hoping that maybe we could pin the turtle deaths on the aerator. But Laura, tell us how the discovery was made of the actual
culprits or
I'm going to
the use of some culprits. Yeah, so I have a nature camp through the park just with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, and we were doing first our hike over the little bridge there, and we saw somebody said, "Oh, there's a turtle." I'm like, "Yeah, right." And sure enough, in the creek, there was that turtle that Pam just showed. It looked like a little.
It's a map turtle, actually. If we go back, it's the other turtles. I think we're all painted turtles, but this one, it's got the prominent ridge here. It's got the kind of uneven layers here on the marginal scutes, and then it's got this really cool head pattern. Stripes, there's no red, but there's these big yellow marks by the eyes. No, sorry, Laura, didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, that's okay. And, and they said, of course, oh, the turtle. I'm like, oh, it is a turtle. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's another dead one. And, it's unfortunate because the kids have seen a dead robin just by chance, then they saw the dead turtle. And they keep on asking. I said, we're going to look for birds, the other day. And they, had with their little mini toilet paper roll binoculars, and they said, are they going to be alive? And I'm like, yes, they're going to be alive. But anyways, we continued on our hike, and we were on a small part on the opposite side of that front pond. If you think of the little statue and the dam and go across, there's a little part that juts out, and it's got a little limestone wall around it. And we always go there because the kids think it's cool. And I took the kids there, and as I was looking, as we were examining the area, I glanced over, and there was this trap that that Pam has on there, and we quickly took a picture of it, and I thought, oh my gosh, this could be, not the culprit, because it would be the people who were the culprit, but someone had left out this trap, which, and maybe Pam, you can talk a little bit more about the trap. It's called a minnow trap.
Yeah, and it's something we actually had a couple here at the Park District that we would use for turtle surveys when it's used properly. And I don't know who put this in there, and I don't know what they were trying to catch. There was no tag on it. That's kind of an important part of using nets like this. If you're going to leave something behind, you have to identify it. You have to identify yourself as the person who left it. And there was no indication of who owned it. But in order to trap turtles for surveys, you need to make sure that some of that hoop, like half of the hoop, is out of the water, so that when the turtle walks in, usually bait it with something stinky like smoked oysters or sardines or something. You put the can in there with just the lid partially pulled open, and then the turtles smell it and they go in that funnel end, and then they're stuck until you let them out. And yeah, I think whoever put that in there, again, I don't know what they were going after, but they would then just, throw the turtles. Well, 4 of the turtles were in the water. They must have just thrown them in. I don't know if they thought they were going to sink. But then that last one, that map turtle, was on land, right, Laura?
Well, it was in the creek bed, actually. The creek bed is so low you couldn't tell there was water right next to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was very upsetting to me, knowing the full story, about all the, the turtles, and it appears someone had been, didn't care.
Yeah.
And I do know, one of our Ryan actually took the trap away, and one of our bosses, Pam, just met me after camp the other day, Chris, and he did a full survey of the actually all 3 ponds there, and was making sure that there weren't any still in the water, and was thinking of setting up a trail cam, just to see if there's going to be a return of possible perpetrators,
the perps,
or not. The perps,
the bad guys.
The turtle perps. So suffice to say, I'm keeping a real sharp eye out, although it's hard when you've got 12 little ones. But keeping a sharp eye out, and just it was kind of disturbing if those were the people who were doing what they did, that the lack of care
Yeah, it's
You know,
well, and it's a good lesson for all of us too. If something doesn't look right, if you know, you can get word to some, you know, call the parks office, call me, you know, or somehow get word to somebody that something doesn't look right. You know, with the dead turtles, when John reported the dead turtles, we started looking into it, and you know, it took a while, but I think we figured out what was going on. Now, why it happened and is it going to happen again? And we don't have those answers yet, but yeah. You know, what Emily had mentioned, so another one of our supervisors had mentioned to you, Laura, that there's at this point, it's not a law, it's a bill that's been proposed in Springfield to modify the fishing laws as they pertain to turtles to allow traps. And this is a great example of why trapping turtles is a bad idea. Now, granted, the turtles that were killed by this method were not sensitive species, and they weren't, what's the word I want? They're not listed, they're not threatened, they're not endangered, but it's a non-selective method of catching turtles. That trap, you know, anything can walk into it. And that's so dangerous to turtles that are having a hard time, particularly our Blandings turtles. So there is a group of agencies, St. Charles Park District is one of them, that has signed on to a letter protesting and contesting that bill. Hopefully it doesn't make it out. I can't remember if it was in the Senate or the House, but hopefully it gets killed before it passes any further along, because that would be a big problem if people are throwing these nets in places where we've got endangered species. Not to mention our own little Delmore Woods turtles.
yeah.
Oh.
You know, not to mention, I think a lot of people, like these people, probably didn't care or didn't know how to use them properly. You know,
Yeah, I kind of
yeah.
get that impression. Well, I told you too, we had set 2 out years ago. We used to do a herp camp for summer, and we had put 2 out at Otter Creek Bend, and somebody pulled one of those on us because they recognized the danger, even though we were, you know, it was set up properly and we were going to be checking it and it had our names on it. But, you know, people do, I guess, take matters into their own hands, and we didn't catch any turtles, but we also didn't, you know.
Well, if I find any of these people, I might just take matters into my own hands. But
you go, Laura.
I will.
You sick those preschoolers on them.
Yeah, you know what? That will get them.
Oh, well, thanks for that report from the field. I think we're just about done here. Oh no, we got your pictures here too, Laura. Just briefly, you found in the sand.
Yeah, this was remarkable. I was this weekend up in Benville, Michigan. And my sister has a house up there, which is near Saugatuck. And Sunday, my daughter was saying, "Oh my gosh, you know, my oldest daughter, you know, all those dead fish, and did you see their teeth?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Because I had just been walking the day before. I just thought it was wood or something. And we looked, and they were all over the place. They did look like small, tiny bits of driftwood. I would say they were like 4 inches long, maybe. And then I started to see what I had been stepping around. But these guys, what a set of teeth. And I know nothing about fish. So of course, who do I send the picture to? I sent it to Pam.
Well, and I wasn't sure at first either, because my fish experience, the toothy fish I know about are muskies and northern pike and walleyes. And this, you know, I'm thinking, like, didn't we text about piranhas and pecus?
Yeah. The Lake Michigan piranha, the next movie.
But then you used a key word, Laura. You said there was a lot of them.
Yes.
And so that got me thinking about invasive species. And again, I don't know a lot about it, but there is a fish, and I found a little diagram here. It's from the New York Department of Environmental Conservation. This is a fish, the round goby. So what Laura found was round gobies. Usually when you find a lot of something, there's just sort of this law of averages that it's going to be an invasive species as opposed to a native one. And these round gobies, they came in, as did our zebra mussels and quagga mussels, and gosh, there's other things too. They come in the ballast water of ships from other continents. And then when that ballast water is released, the young or the eggs or whatever are released into the waters as well. So they didn't show up until in the Great Lakes until fairly recently. I think it was like the 90s that they showed up. But you, Laura, had mentioned the fish mottled sculpin. I'm just going to quick flip over to that for a minute. This is a mottled sculpin. And they are a part of our local ecology, our native fish. They have some distinct black bars on the right. They still got this goofy kind of shape. Their eyes are kind of high on their heads. But these are the characteristics to look for in a living round goby.
That's the problem. All of them are dead. So.
And not just merely dead, but really most sincerely dead.
Yes.
But this black mark here is supposed to be something to look for. And then the mottled sculpin eyes are set up high too, but these really sit up like a frog's eyes on top of the head. It's something I'm a little envious. I kind of like a dried out round goby for my desk.
Well, my sister's still there. I can talk to her.
Can you put in an order for a dozen?
Yeah, they could give you several dozen, I think.
Hand them out as prizes.
Right. Make them into long earrings.
Long fragrant earrings. Right?
Or a nice brooch.
Super cool. Well, I think that we're just about out of time here, and I think that brings us just about to the end. There was one more thing I wanted to mention. Since we're talking about weird things, I actually had a late night email. It was an email on Saturday night. Came from a woman. I'd spoken to her group here in town a few weeks ago. She said, is there any way that you can help? A family had stopped her in her yard and said they had a fawn. And there was a little bit of a language barrier, but it sounded as though something had happened to the mom, or the fawn was abandoned. This is the time of year when a lot of fawns are around, and some of them are still being born. A healthy fawn is they're virtually scentless. The mama leaves them in a secluded spot because she needs to go out and feed herself. So fawns are meant to that's why they got those spotted the spotted fur. They're meant to blend in. They're not meant to call attention to themselves, and they're meant to be left alone. The fawn that this family had, they actually had it in the car with them, and this woman was able to direct them to Anderson, which, by the way, Anderson Humane does not take fawns. They're not licensed to take fawns, but Kane Area Rehabilitation and Education for Wildlife up in Valley View. Wonderful woman named Vicki runs CARE. She is licensed to take in fawns, and luckily Anderson referred them to her. She said the fawn was so feisty, it kicked her, and she's got at least bruised ribs, if not cracked ribs. That's how healthy this fawn was. I hope, well, that sounds bad, but I hope something did happen to the fawn's mom, because then it ultimately would need rescuing. But if that fawn, if there was just a misunderstanding and that mama deer, that doe, is looking for its fawn somewhere and this fawn has now been removed, that's something we want to avoid. This is not that fawn. This is a picture that shows a fawn that does need help. Can you see how the ears, let's zoom in here a little bit. See how these ears are curled back? This is a sign of dehydration in fawns. And it's a sign that it's not been getting attention. It's not been able to nurse from its mom, and it does need some assistance. So you can look for other signs of dehydration by pinching the skin gently. But if it doesn't immediately, go back to its natural contours, it could show dehydration. And then if the nose is dry or crusty, that too can indicate dehydration. So yeah, just a little word that if you see a fawn and it's curled up and it's trying to hide and its ears look fine, just leave it be. That means mom is coming back. And if you do have a fawn that needs help, don't take it to Anderson Humane. See if you can get in touch with Vicki. If she's full, she might be able to direct you somewhere else. All right, with that, I'm going to stop the share. And it looks like we've got some chats here. We'll run through these as best we can. Yes, a lot of cicada huts every year. Yeah, I start an annual collection too. And those are annual cicadas. And that name is tricky because it sounds as if they have a 1-year life cycle, and they don't. They actually are down underneath the ground for, I've heard 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I don't know exactly how long they're under there, but annually we see some come up. They're not on that 17-year cycle that I think dates back to like just after the last ice age is when that behavior became prevalent in those periodical cicadas. But yeah, annual. So yeah, we do find cicada, the shed skins every year. And if you look closely, if you find some in different areas, you'll notice there are some differences. We've got, I think, at least 4 different types of annual cicadas, in addition to the 3 types of periodical cicadas that could occur in this area. Yeah, sputtering. It sounds like my old lawnmower too, Laura. Kind of sputtering and trying to start. All right, so you might have some. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. The cicadas, these periodical cicadas, they call for just a few weeks, and then they're gone again. And with these stragglers, and the individual insects live about 2 weeks. And since it's not a full emergence of the entire brood, it could be, just a few days. They're also very attractive to birds that are trying to feed themselves and their young right now. So yeah, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. Maybe you can track some down. Okay, yeah, Susie, keep an eye open. And that branch was taken last fall. Okay, yeah, look closer at it. You might need a magnifying glass because those things are pretty tiny. Super cool flies, yeah. And yes, the deer flies are relentless. I can almost feel the pinch now. It's something, yeah. Mike used to have, in your garden, it got crowded out. I'm guessing we were talking about serviceberries, or maybe it was our wild quinine. Yeah, beautiful tree. Yeah, Karen, try a serviceberry. They are tasty. And I'd actually, now that I know what they are, I've always heard about them, but I've never actually eaten one before. They are delicious. So yeah, mulberries, they're good. Mulberries actually, though, are pretty invasive. We've got a native mulberry, but then most of what we see are the invaders. So yeah, eat away. The more we eat, the fewer seeds the birds will have to spread around. Yeah. Modern problems require modern solutions. Yeah, yeah, tell that to those cowbirds. So yeah, I think we've got, yeah, Meredith, you're right. Kids put the trap there. There's a sign. I don't know if it says no fishing or if it says no fishing on the dam. I can't quite remember the wording there. I know you're not supposed to swim there.
Yeah, it's no fishing on the dam.
No fishing on the dam. Okay. Yeah. Laura, how many years have you taught at Del Nor Woods?
I don't know.
How many decades?
Exactly. No fishing on the dam. Don't ice skate there and don't swim either.
So, okay, if you have an abandoned fawn in your yard, Cane Area Rehabilitation and Education there is another group out in Sycamore that I think is licensed for fawn. Fawns are really tricky because they're high strung. They can get easily agitated when they are not, when they're getting too much attention. But care is, and boy, if anybody has any extra funds, they're looking to donate somewhere. I'm always trying to push care and their cause, because it really is, it's a one-woman show. She has lots of volunteers, but it's in this time of year, it's absolutely relentless. You can send a text message to Vicki at 708-220-1420. I'm not divulging any secrets. That's on their Facebook page too. But yeah, she doesn't have a receptionist. It's just her. And it was pretty late Saturday night when she got that fawn in. But it's without a big benefactor. Willowbrook Wildlife in DuPage County was started with, I think it was, I don't know, what would you call it, an endowment maybe, or a gift. And that's what it takes to get something like this off the ground. Nothing like that has come forward in Kane County. And Fox Valley Wildlife was absorbed a couple of years ago by Anderson, who at the time, they changed their name to Anderson Humane with the intent of building a large rescue center for domestic animals as well as wildlife. And I don't know, those plans seem to be on hold right now, but their capacity is smaller than it used to be. As a result, Vicki has taken in, last year she said it was between 800 and 900 animals that needed some form of help. So yeah, if you do feel an animal needs help, she's the main go-to around here. And if you, again, feel moved to make donations, she's a good one as well. Let's see. Yes, Carl Strang. So Carl Strang produces every year a singing insects guide that he updates. If anyone's interested in a copy of that, drop me a line. I could forward you the 2022 volume that he sent out. I believe it was in January. Disorganized hoots. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if it's disorganized like or barred owls that when they actually, they're a very chatty owl. They can be disorganized. So maybe it was a disorganized barred owl. I don't know, Anne. That's my guess. Oh gosh, folks, we're now on lots of thank yous. So glad we had a lot of new folks tonight. Really appreciate your time and your patience. Technology isn't my middle name, but covered a lot of ground tonight. Have a wonderful rest of your week, everybody, and we'll see you back here. No, we won't. I knew there was one more thing I was going to say. We are taking next week as a bye week. So there is no Good Natured Hour for June 20th. The next time we meet will be on Tuesday, June 27th. All right. So got 2 whole weeks to gather your nature notes. I'll see you back here again June 27th.
Thanks, Pam. Have a good
Pam.
Thanks, Pam. Great turnout tonight.
Good
There.
night, Pam.
Take care.
Thank you, Pam.
Good night.
Thanks, Pam.
Night, John.